Yeah, so when you line this all up, the missiles, the tech, the rhetoric, the encirclement, the proxies, it's all pointing one way, isn't it? And they've been sitting on it. They've been waiting, like sitting ducks, really. They've been going along with what the West expects of them. They've been letting diplomacy play out. They haven't been rocking the boat as much as they can, sitting on their hands, Yeah,
and I've got to ask the question, and the answer is very obvious as well. It's part of our obvious logic that we were seeing. Why are you sitting in your hands? And as we said before, it's going to cause more death. It's going to cause more outrage. The bigger the problem gets, because when you deal with it, it's going to have a bigger implication, a bigger explosion, as it were. But they've been sitting on it. They haven't been doing anything. They have been doing small strikes here and there. They've been hitting threats as they bubble up. It's that whole mowing the grass idea. They actually got an Israeli word for it in the military. Keeping things contained without going all in.
Yeah, exactly. They're managing it, aren't they? They're not ending it. It's almost like they've known this bigger moment that we are in now was always coming.
Yeah, and then you look at the other side of the board. What's happening in Iran at this point in time, the unrest, the pressure on the regime. And you start thinking, is that going to slow things down? Or is it actually going to accelerate decisions? It's like if you're the regime, are you thinking at this moment, we can't deal with this? Or do you think this is a moment to push forward while you can, while you've still got some kind of power when your streets are full of people protesting against you? It's like maybe this window's closing for them to do anything. So both sides are really looking at the same moment thinking, this might be it. And Israel is stuck in that tension. Do we keep managing this or do we act before everything tips?
Yeah, because waiting, it might be worse, but acting is going to set everything in motion as well.
Yeah, and so either way, you're stepping onto something horrible that you can't take back.
Yeah, and there's a deep, well, we have to look at the deep psychological engine that's driving these decisions, because this isn't just cold rational reading of data points on a blackboard, is it? It's rooted in, as well, deep generational trauma and a very specific historical pattern that has been burned into the Israeli consciousness. And to really understand the psychology that culminated in what happened in March 2026 and the preemption that happened then, we've really got to look at the ghosts that haunt every single Israeli decision-making room. And we're going to examine the profound psychological whiplash between two very defining historical events, the 1967 Six-Day War and the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And I think one of them my mum was in, like mother, like son, end up in Israel in a war situation, a big war. Let's walk through these two wars here, because the contrast between them is pretty stunning.
Okay, so imagine the psychological environment for the Israeli public in the first, 1967. The situation is Israel sees Arab armies of Egypt, Syria and Jordan, like they're massing troops on their borders. And Egypt, it blockades the Straits of Tiran. So that's going to cut off Israel's southern port. And the public rhetoric from labouring leaders on the radio is openly, violently hostile. And it's promising a war of extermination. So the threat, at least on paper, is undeniable.
Sounds familiar to this moment in history, doesn't it? Starting to see the parallel here.
Yeah, that's the psychology we're digging into here. And so in that moment, Israel doesn't wait for the international community to solve it. They launch this massive coordinated preemptive strike. And in a matter of hours, they destroy the Egyptian Air Force while it's still sitting on the tarmac. And without air cover, the Arab armies are completely finished. And Israel survives. And Israel ends up actually capturing massive amounts of territory. And the win is absolutely stunning. But the lesson there, and by the way, a lot of that land that they captured back, they call it kind of buffering land. because of this strategic depth problem, they need as much land as they can, and they use the excuse of war sometimes to produce the buffers that they need for their own security. And you see in the maps of Israel 1967 borders. Anyway, that's another subject. Well, not really, but we don't want to go into it now.
So yeah, this is a decisive victory in just 6 days. And there's a really obvious lesson there, isn't there?
Preemption saves lives. Action on those lines equals survival.
So when you see the threat that is massing at your borders on the blackboard, you see it lining up. You start drawing the lines that become more and more obvious, and then there's a time window that you think, hang on a minute. You're not going to wait for permission. You're going to strike first so that you live.
Yeah. So, yeah, all those lessons, brilliant. Then you fast forward to just 6 years later, 1973, and 1973 is the trauma we're talking about that rewrote the psychology. In 1973, in the autumn, the signs were all there again. The blackboard was filling up. The Israeli military intelligence was seeing massive Egyptian troop movements near the Suez Canal. They saw Syrian forces on the Golan Heights, like massing. And they, again, had heard direct warnings from King Hussein of Jordan.
He actually secretly flew to Tel Aviv to warn Golda Meir, who was the prime minister at the time, that an attack was imminent.
They saw the guy building the nest.
So the question is, why didn't they repeat 1967?
Well, because of what they call, and it's maybe a military term, we didn't get to the bottom of this, the Conceptia. It's a Hebrew term, but it actually comes from the same root as concept. So it's kind of Latin originally, then pulled into the Hebrew. But it basically means a preconception or a fixed mindset that actually blinds you.
And they say that after the massive victory of 67, they say the conception of this conceptia, this preconception blindness that they had, was developed because of this kind of like arrogant blind spot. They believed that the Arab armies wouldn't dare attack them again like that until they had achieved as much air power as Israel had, air parity. But more importantly, the political leadership hesitated due to immense international pressure from the United States. There's this guy, Henry Kissinger, at the time in the US administration, and he really made it explicit to Golda Meir. You saw it in the film. Do not strike first. If you strike preemptively, you are going to be seen as the aggressor, and you are not going to get a single American bullet.
America was then a very big ally, and still is. Israel are on their own 2 feet a bit more now, but back then America was big.
So the Israeli leadership thought, well, maybe they're just posturing. Okay, maybe they're just posturing. Maybe it's just a military exercise. And if we mobilise our reserves and strike first, we're going to ruin our economy. We're going to lose our only superpower ally. So yeah, against all tactical data, they waited. They let the window close. And the result of that hesitation was the Yom Kippur War.